Good afternoon. My brother-in-law Greg suggested I do an episode about Pilgrim Place. What is it? Where is it? How big is it? Why is one of its main streets named after a cartoon character? And just who lives here? Well, keep watching and we'll find out.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
On the surface, Pilgrim Place is simply a retirement community in Claremont. Its boundaries are Berkeley to the east, 8th Street on the north, Harrison on the south, and Larkin Park to the west. A lot of Claremont residents will recognize it as the place on Berkeley Avenue where groundwater leaks into the street for months of the year after a heavy rain, fed by one of Claremont's once famous, now pesky, artesian wells, most of which eventually dried up. The community is home to over 360 residents and consists of about 185 rental cottages ranging in size from 600 square feet to 1,800 square feet. There are many public multi-use buildings the residents have for gathering, dining, recreation, and reflection. There's administration buildings, and it boasts a small hospital, assisted living units with nursing and memory care facilities. It has its own guest lodge, museum, arts and crafts hall, aquatic center, tiny botanical gardens, and greenhouse. There are 4 main entrances into the community. The elaborate wrought iron entry gates were originally made for a church in New York and installed here in 1932. It's not a gated community. The gates are always open, yet somehow it remains tastefully private with a fleet of golf carts meticulously tending the property. I seldom drive around its miniature streets that seem better suited to Disneyland's Zootopia than to real cars, but whenever I ride my bike through here, I'm always greeted with smiles and waves. If the residents see you taking pictures, instead of chasing you away, they wander over and happily chat about whatever you're interested in. There are many signs posted throughout the little hamlet indicating the residents are socially aware and politically active with a strong sense of community. On one Saturday of every month, the public is invited inside for their arts and crafts sales, and for 3 days every November, they host the annual Pilgrim Days Festival. Of course, Claremont's famous 4th of July parade would not be the same without Pilgrim Place's infamous sailing ship float and raucous band of geritol-fueled seniors marching down Indian Hill Boulevard. And what about Scrooby Lane? Was it named for a goofy, cartoon, crime-solving dog? No, it's the small village in England where the Pilgrims sailed from to escape from religious persecution. The same group who landed at Plymouth Rock in 1620. Which leads us to the last question. Who lives in Pilgrim Place? Ah, that's what makes this little community special, because up until recently, in order to live here, you had to be a religious missionary, specifically a missionary of the Congregational Church. On a recent visit, I stopped and briefly chatted with a resident who had been a missionary herself, then became a librarian. She has lived here for over 30 years. She loves the community and her neighbors. Now, I didn't think there were enough missionaries and their families to keep the community fully occupied, but she told me there's a long waiting list to get in, as the rules have been relaxed and there are now Catholics, Buddhists, Sikhs, and Jews living here, and even some professors of theology. Anybody who devoted their lives to the service of others would be considered on a case-by-case basis. I wondered if the church paid all or a portion of the residents' rent, so I asked if it was expensive to live here, but she was uncomfortable talking about that. So I went to their website and researched the cost, and I'll show you that information at the end of the video. During the land rush of 1885, the Pacific Land Company used this photograph of an artesian well to entice land buyers to settle in the new township of Claremont. That well was located right here where this pump is, and it's been leaking ever since. In 1915, the fourth president of Pomona College, James Blaisdell, was approached by Congregational missionary Miss Mary Porter, who had been furloughed after completing her term of service in China. She appealed to Blaisdell to provide a place where missionaries could stay between assignments, or their family could stay while they were far away. Clever Blaisdell, knowing that having many missionaries nearby would benefit the expanding college, he could use them as guest lecturers or basically free labor. A consortium of 12 bought a property on Columbia Avenue where Scripps College is now. On January 8, 1915, the group signed papers of incorporation which put the concept into motion. On February 12th, the Claremont Missionary Home was dedicated, and longtime Claremont donor Helen Renwick, whose beautifully preserved home resides on the Pomona College campus, signed over the deeds to 9 other properties along Columbia Avenue between 11th and 12th to the college. Over the next few years, 2 additional homes were added, and so began the synergy between the college and Pilgrim Place. In 1924, the missionary home had outgrown its 3 residences. At the time, a surplus of women were seeking higher education and spiritual enlightenment. So the college consortium decided to open a woman's college, which it named Scripps College after its humble benefactor, Ellen Browning Scripps. By then, many missionaries, after serving for decades, needed a place to retire, and so $21,000 was raised to purchase 20 acres on the far western side of Claremont for their brand new retirement community. It was fairly undesirable land in those days. It was well away from the rest of town, and prior to the purchase, it was a swamp used for duck hunting, where Pomona students waded up to their armpits in mud to retrieve the ducks. While Scripps College constructed its first residence hall, the Joy Toll Hall, the college used the 3 old missionary homes as classrooms, a library, and a maintenance building. Its placement smack dab in the middle of 6th Street was no coincidence. Back then, by blocking what was then known as the Ontario Road, the adopted route of El Camino Real between San Bernardino, San Gabriel Mission, and eventually Alvaro Street Plaza in Los Angeles, it thwarted a major thoroughfare cutting right through the middle of Claremont. Here's a little story my 3rd grade teacher friend told me about the missions and the El Camino Real. When Father Junipero Serra set out a new trail from a mission, he planted mustard seeds along the way. The plants thrived easily in the California wilderness with very little water. The leaves provided a tasty, iron-rich side dish. The seeds could be used to make spices and medicines. But the most important aspect was that when the mustard flowers bloomed, they could be seen for miles by the travelers, a sort of neon yellow highway. With its new location, the Missionary Home Board thought it also needed a new name. They first thought of Scrooby Manor, but since the missionaries thought of themselves as pilgrims, the board decided on Pilgrim Place for the new name. Keeping with the Pilgrim theme, its east-west streets are named Plymouth, Mayflower, and Scrooby. In 1928, after Mary Porter's death, her brother James commissioned a multi-use community building to be constructed at the main entrance on 6th Street. Its Spanish colonial architecture is a tasteful and beautiful addition to the grounds. He named it the Mary H. Porter Hall in honor of her and in celebration of her devotion to her faith and fellow man. A few years later, inspired by the entrance gates at Pomona College, James commissioned the 4 main portal gates in honor of his father Henry, who was also a missionary in China. While building the 3rd house on the grounds, Mrs. Irene Barber, a missionary from Turkey, said that she would be glad to furnish funds for a new house, but only if she could live there rent-free as long as she lived, with the understanding that when she died, it would revert to Pilgrim Place to use it as they saw fit. This plan would become known as the Cooperative Life Lease Plan. It proved so beneficial to both parties that 112 of the subsequent homes would be funded this way, and over the next few years, the community grew to its present size of 32 acres. As I promised, here's the 2025 cost matrix from the Pilgrim Place website. Assuming I'm single and I want a 900 square foot cottage at $2.66 per square foot, the base rent would be $2,400 plus $539 for the dining fee plus a $649 residential fee, bringing the monthly total to $3,586. Which is not bad considering the services and amenities offered. However, going back to that cooperative lease plan, there is an additional one-time non-refundable fee of $375,444, which is gone after 40 months of residency, or a slightly higher fee of $638,255, of which 50% gets refunded to you or your estate when you move or pass away.
Thanks for going down this rabbit hole with me. As always, if you like my little videos, please consider subscribing, like, comment, and share. It does me a world of good. Well, again, thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you soon. See ya. Whoa, you guys are still awake?